Now let us understand the most important step involved even before we write the thesis. First is selection of the age group on whom you want to write the thesis. For a simple reason being, accordingly you have to select the topic and accordingly will be the aim of the thesis and further steps. Now let's take an example. If you select a topic on menopausal women, definitely you will have to take females above 55 years of age, and you will have to go and search for those X number of these group of tables. You never know how long would it take to search them. However, if you have the required number of people or say of age group 20 to 40 available within your own circle, or 41 to 60 say within your own circle, then you can select a topic accordingly. Hence, it is desirable to select the age group of the people first on whom you want to do the research and then take the topic accordingly. It makes it easier. Now we have selected the age group and now select the topic. So we are good to go with the aim, a little background and objectives in the synopsis part. However, now comes the methodology. This completely depends upon the nature of your aim, what you want to research. Though we are going to talk in detail about different methodologies in the other video, however, I want to share a few examples with you here. Now let's see a few examples. Like I've stated here, say for example, we want to investigate relationship between daily walking and cholesterol levels in the body. So what will happen? What will this kind of study be? This kind of approach would be typically a cross-sectional study. Whereas in the second example, where we want to compare cholesterol levels among different populations of walkers and non-walkers at the same point of time, it would require a longitudinal study. Again, I'm repeating, I'm not sharing or discussing here what is cross-sectional study or longitudinal study, which we'll take in a different video. The third example, where we want to measure cholesterol levels in a single population of daily walkers over an extended period of time. And to make this kind of a choice, we need to know more about the benefits and purpose of each type of study. So, if our aim is different, if our approach is different, the kind of study will be different. So we have to be sure what kind of study we are going to do, and accordingly we can formulate the aim and the objectives of the study. I hope you've understood this well. Now, since we have selected the age group, once we have selected the age group, we have even decided on the topic. Now, deciding on the methodology, the aim and the objective, we have two different methods. It's just like whether the hen came first or whether the egg came first. So you may either write the aim, objective for the study and accordingly go for the methodology, or you may first decide the methodology and then accordingly design the aim and the objective. So that's completely upon you and the present circumstances. So after you have decided the methodology, when the methodology is ready, you may now write an hypothesis for your study and the keywords that best describe your thesis or dissertation. After you have finished the entire steps, that is writing the aim, a short description, the objectives, the methodology, the hypothesis and the keywords for your thesis, for your dissertation, your abstract proposal is now ready to go for approval. So you may now submit it for approval. Now once it is approved, then what to do? Then you're supposed to write a detailed information about your subject. Now what is this detailed information? This comes under the section introduction. In introduction, you need to gather all possible information, because that is when you will be able to do a good study, right? After you have done this introduction where you've collected all possible information, right? Now you need to have some information on the previous researches that have been done on the topic. So you need to go and search for some previous researches similar to the topic that you have and make a note of it. Now this will come under the section ROL, that is review of literature, where you're taking some guide or some reference of researches done by other researchers. Now, depending upon the information that you've got in introduction and a little about what different researchers have done, you can now formulate a questionnaire, and this questionnaire then you can either circulate it through online mode, or you can do interview kind, face-to-face, physically, taking completely depending upon the condition when you're doing the research. Like for example, this is the corona time, so definitely it's very difficult to do face-to-face. So the best possible way of doing research at this time is through online survey. So this formulating the questionnaire and conducting the study, how you will describe it under methodology in detail. Now, when you're finished with this, so in the current scenario, when you're doing it through the online mode, definitely you will get ready-made graphs. But if you are able to do it physically, face-to-face interview kind of completing the questionnaire, okay, then probably you might have to give it to the statistician. Again, the statistician will give you the graphs will be giving you the graphs, and you will have to interpret the result now. Now, definitely when the statistician is also giving you the graphs, you will be interpreting the results on the graphs. Now, interpretation doesn't mean analyzing. Interpretation just means that there is a question, there is a graph to that question, and you're just stating what the graph says. So after you have done this step will basically come under the heading of the section of result and interpretation. After this, you will have to analyze or evaluate your study and discuss that study. So this will come under the section of analysis and discussion. Now, once this has been done, definitely we know that our study is not perfect. Hence, we need to mention the limitations of our study and do recommendations on how this can be done better, so that the next person who wants to do the study on a similar topic can take guidelines from your study on what were the drawbacks and how the study can be done in a better manner in future. Many a times, or not many a times, most of the times students ask me, what should be the length of the thesis? This length of the thesis totally depends from project to project. What is the aim? What is the topic of your project? So we should aim at writing the right information, gathering more information than the length. The length of the thesis could be small, the length of the thesis could be big. It could vary from 40 pages to 100 pages or probably 150 pages. Completely depends upon the topic. The goal should be that it should contain all necessary information to describe the work that you are doing and support the interpretation. We should avoid unnecessary repetition. Like for example, some students may have a thesis of about 100 pages, and if we compare our thesis with them, it's totally irrelevant, because trying to take our thesis to 100 pages, we might just keep on doing unnecessary repetitions. So remember, avoid unnecessary repetitions and irrelevant tangents. Irrelevant tangents means irrelevant we can say comparison. Some suggestions how to either shorten your paper, or not basically shorten the paper, but to only put relevant information. So first and foremost, if you feel that you have to repeat an information, it is preferable to use tables, because when we use tables, the information becomes concise, the information becomes precise, and we present it in a different way. Somewhere we may present it in a paragraph way, some other place we may present it in a table form. So it looks good also. Now include only sufficient background material. Do not just go on repeating, or do not just take irrelevant information. Not every paper ever written on the subject. No. Say if you're writing a review of literature, it doesn't mean that you have to take 20, 40 review of literature. No, 4 to 6 review of literature is sufficient, and specifically that is specific to your subject. Use figure captions effectively. Wherever you can use figures, or wherever you can use images, it looks good to the reader that they're not just going on reading paragraphs and paragraphs, right? Delete observation and results mentioned in the text for which no data is shown. If there is no data, there is no need for an observation or result, because any observation or result needs to be supported by a data. So if there is no data for something, just delete the observations or the results. Delete conclusions if it is not supported by anything. Delete interpretations or discussions that do not take you anywhere, where there is no conclusion to it. I'm sure these things would be a little clear to you as we go ahead. But here also somewhat it would make sense to you. I'm confident about it. The audience for whom you're writing matters a lot. But these days, as we know, when we are doing some thesis or some dissertation, basically a research, the dissertation can be read by anybody, because when you're going to upload it online, it's an international audience that we may have. So we need to understand the audience at length, at breadth. For example, in India, probably people may like to read paragraph and paragraph and paragraph. But an audience away from India, especially in UK, US, Australia, they may be more interested into figures and tables. They may be more interested in a flow chart or a cartoon. Also, do not assume that readers who are reading your research online is familiar with the geography of your area. So do mention what is the geography of your area where you're doing the research. Mention every small possible piece of information that is necessary. Probably you could put in a location map or anything which you feel the reader may not know about your the part of your research. Use shorter sentences. Avoid idioms, because or avoid idioms meaning avoid phrases that these phrases or idioms may be local, may be known to the local people in your area, but they may not be known to the international audience. So remember to use simple sentences that convey the direct meaning. So first and foremost, we need to understand how do we make the thesis or the dissertation writing more easier or more satisfying. So the first step is segmenting. What do we understand by segmenting? Breaking the thesis into small chunks. Like for example, when we see different steps, first is synopsis writing, then is introduction, then is review of literature, and so on and so forth. So when we break them into small chunks, we know that we should be tackling them one at a time. Many a times we think, let's start writing all of them together, and we just get confused. So avoid that. Break them into small chunks and tackle it one at a time. I'm sure most of my students, not most, but all of my students have seen or experienced with me that unless and until they do not complete one heading, I do not go to the second heading. Why? Because unless and until the first heading is not completed proper, the next step will lag behind or will be incomplete or will not be proper. So avoid doing the entire thesis at one time. It is just going to confuse you. Just focus on a small piece at a time, right? So to begin segmenting, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to detail the subject outline, or get into the subsection level. Just like as I said, first is synopsis, introduction, review of literature, methodology, result and interpretation, discussion, and so on and so forth. So we have successfully completed the first step of segmenting our thesis or dissertation into chunks, smaller chunks. Now when we have seen that we have 8 subsections or 10 subsections, now we need to schedule how are we going to do it. Now, everybody may have different set of time. For example, if you're working, probably you may have time only on the weekends, or if you're not, or if you're working part-time, so you may have time every day, or you might be working part-time but you're a housewife as well, so you may have to do housework, so probably you're a little busy, so you may schedule it every second or third day. So it totally depends upon the time available. So do not go in a hurry. First, schedule your, try and understand what is the available time to you, and accordingly schedule it, that you'll be doing it every day, consecutive days, alternate days, as per time availability. This is very, very important. So we have already done the 2 steps, the segmenting. After segmenting, we have done the scheduling also. Now what? Everybody likes to be rewarded. Everyone likes, oh, I have done this on time. So it is very, very important to reward your own self. Now, when you have done your scheduling, okay, on this particular day I will be completing this. So if you are on time, if you have completed the work as per you scheduled for yourself, give yourself a gift, something inexpensive. It could be like, if you like an ice cream, go take an ice cream, go have an ice cream. If you like a foot massage, just walk into the beauty parlor and take a foot massage. Or if you like walking around in a mall or something, go and walk in a mall. Or if you want to chat with your friend, go ahead and chat with your friend. Basically something which you enjoy. So what happens once you have treated yourself, you say, oh wow, I'm on time, I'm scheduled. So acknowledge your own progress. That will motivate you to finish your thesis on time. Now, after we have segmented the thesis, we have scheduled it, and we are continuing to progress step by step. But what are the main points we need to consider when we are doing all these steps and we are rewarding ourselves? What if we just have no fixed idea of what we are doing? What if we do not have a proper construction or proper format to do it? What if you're not using a verified source? What if you're not using a logical thinking? Would it give direction to your paper? Definitely not. So what are the important points when we are writing a thesis? First and foremost, there should be just one idea. It cannot focus on more than one idea, 2 ideas, 3 ideas, 4 ideas. No, then your thesis is not going anywhere. So remember, focus on one idea. Secondly, if possible, take a very recent or the most burning issue, because it will attract your reader, it will attract the person who is reading your thesis. Consider doing more and more scientific research and making a good analysis. Search for credible and verified sources from the internet, what we consider as review of literature. Okay, enhance logical thinking. Basically, when you are discussing something, so put something logic into it. Do not just give illogical reasonings. Give logical thinking, so that the reader who is reading your thesis will be forced to think, oh, probably this could be one of the points which could be considered. Give direction to keep a paper organized, which means say if you are going from east, so you start from east, okay, and if from east you take a left turn, then you go to the north, then again you take a left turn, you come to the west, and again you take a left turn, you come to the south, and again you take a left turn, you go to east, right? But so this is a definite direction. But what about if you are facing the east and you just jump to the west, or you jump to the southwest? So that will not give a definite direction. Your paper will be lost. So remember to give a definite direction to your paper, which will keep your paper organized, and it should be specified to a particular set of audience, be it male, female, educated, uneducated, rural, urban. There could be a lot of definitions for different kinds of population. So it needs to be identified in your thesis. When you're considering about writing your thesis, it is also important that the issue should be easily identifiable by the reader, which means you should be writing it in very, very simple language, because your thesis could be read by a common man also. So if you are writing too technical terms or too much of scientific terms, it would not be easily approachable by a common reader. So remember, it has to be easily identifiable by anyone who is reading the thesis. Secondly, your thesis should be able to identify the problems and probable solutions depending upon the type. And if you select a unique topic, it definitely attracts the reader's attention. So last but not the least, before we start writing a thesis, we need to keep certain things in mind which our thesis should be able to answer. First and foremost, who? Whom are we including in this thesis? Be it age group, gender, whatever. Why? Why are we taking this topic? What is the reason behind it? Where? Where did it take place? Did it take place in Mumbai? If specifically in Mumbai, which place? The more the specific location, the more better will be your thesis. Then when did you do your research? So the timing of the research is also important. For example, if you are doing a research on dengue, okay, in the month or during the rainy season, or malaria during the rainy season, and if you are doing the research on dengue and malaria or during the winter season or during the summer season, so when do you think the research on malaria or dengue would be more fruitful? I'm sure you all know the answer. When there's a lot of water collection. When is there water collection? Especially during the rainy season, or even could be possible during the summer season in some places, like where there are extreme heat and people do start coolers. So coolers are filled with water, and sometimes the water remains in the cooler. There's accumulation of water in the coolers, and there could be eggs of mosquitoes lying in that. So it is very important when you're doing the research whether it is the feeding time for that disease or it is not the feeding time for the disease. So how accurate the result will be. Then what happened in your thesis, the result and the analysis, and how did it happen? It means what was the methodology that you used, because the methodology used will also tell you how accurate or how efficient was your thesis. We've already seen how to make our thesis writing interesting or easy for us by segmenting, scheduling, rewarding the points, the different points we need to consider while writing a thesis. Now let's see, after all this, what are the steps in the construction of a thesis. So first is selecting a topic. If you have a cross-cutting issue, which means a very current issue, definitely it becomes of great interest to the writer. So selecting a topic is very, very important. Now depending upon the topic, you need to select an audience. So the audience could be age-wise, gender-wise, anything for that matter. Then skimming and reading is the next step. Then the order of writing, how you are going to write, whether you're going to put figures and tables, then whatever figures and tables you put, you need to tie the text to this data. And also you need to give credit who is basically helping you out in writing the thesis. The other things of importance is also title including the subtitle. There could be a subtitle, there could be, could not be. Then the author, which means you who are writing the thesis. The institution for whom you're writing the thesis. In your case, it could be IGNOU, it could be any other institution for whom you're writing the thesis. Then the department, for which department are you writing the thesis, the date of delivery, when you have finished writing the thesis and when you're going to submit the thesis. Then the name of the research mentor, that is your guide and advisor, their institution, their contact details could be their email address, their mobile number, and also the certificate of authenticity that it is you who have done the work and you take the responsibility that this work has not been published anywhere else. This is the first time you have taken this topic and you're submitting it to your institution. So now when we have defined the structure, we have put the indexing, we have given the certificate of authenticity, we have acknowledged and everything. So now comes the first step. So when we have to define our thesis, the first is writing an abstract or a synopsis. So what is an abstract or a synopsis? Which basically gives in short about your thesis, what your thesis is all about. Now when you have a good abstract, when your abstract is attractive, it is concise, it should be concise, readable, and it should be quantitative. It should be in one line and on the importance of the document that you have written. Okay. Secondly, the length of the entire abstract or your synopsis should not be more than 400 words. The abstracts should not have any kind of citations or quotes. It should be just in your own words. It should be as clear as possible. There should be no room for confusion. And you could use numbers wherever required. If not, do not use numbers. And why does it matter? Basically, why are you writing this synopsis? Why are you writing this thesis? At least one significant reason why you have taken up this subject. A hypothesis, it could be a null hypothesis, or which you are refuting it, or you may be proving it. So it could be just a hypothesis. So this is the abstract. If you follow these points, you will be doing a wonderful abstract and the reader will definitely be attracted towards your thesis. So then comes the table of contents or the index. Now table of contents could also be before the abstract or the synopsis, or it could be after the abstract or the synopsis, whatever you choose. Now what should the index or the table of contents include? It should include all the headings and subheadings with the exact page numbers. It should also include the list of figures, that is the pictures that you're using with the exact page numbers that it is on. A short title for that figure, not the whole caption. Also the list of tables that you're putting in the in your thesis, on which page it is, and a short title again and not the whole caption. So remember to include the headings, subheadings, the list of figures and the list of tables with a shorter title and not the whole caption. So after the synopsis comes your introduction. Now synopsis means that we have just given a picture of the entire thesis in about 400 words. That could be just 1 or 2 pages at the most. So what should an introduction look like? Definitely an introduction has to be in a paragraph. But remember, when we are continuously writing a paragraph, would it would anybody feel like reading it? No. So remember to break up your introduction into small subheadings with logical segmenting. Probably at the beginning of the introduction, you could give a hook statement. A hook statement is something, oh, what a wonderful statement this is, let me read it further. And what if it just starts like this? So a hook statement could be probably a proverb or anything like that, a phrase, an attractive phrase, because which is directing towards solving a scientific problem or addressing a scientific problem. It should motivate the reader to read further your thesis. Remember that a statement of the goal of the paper has also to be mentioned in the introduction. But a word of caution, do not repeat your abstract. If you're repeating the same information again and again, it becomes boring. Would you like to read the same statement again and again, the same text again and again? I'm sure no. So definitely remember, once you've written X thing, do not repeat it in the entire thesis at any point of time. Otherwise it becomes boring. Then there has to be sufficient background information for the reader to understand what you are trying to convey and what is the significance of the study, what is the importance of the study that you are conducting. The introduction has to be focused on the objective of your paper or the objective of your thesis. Explain the scope of the work that your thesis is going to do and that which it is not going to do, so that the reader knows what a definite objective you have in mind and what is the objective with what the reader is reading your paper for. So we are done writing the synopsis or the abstract, which gives a picture in short about the entire thesis. We've done with the introduction, giving a background of what we are going to tell in the paper in our thesis. Now All said and done, now we have to compare it with the previous researches in the same field. So what we have to do, we are supposed to find out different studies that have been done in this field and compare it with our study. Okay, so this is called review of literature. It should basically cite anything. Basically, there should be about 4 to 6 studies which are very close to what your thesis topic is. And it should be most relevant, and try and take the most recent one. So when you have taken the relevant and recent literature work that is as far as close to your topic, you should then also explain that why more work was necessary on this topic and why you are doing more research on this topic. It's very, very important. What if no research is required? So, the others may ask, no research was required on this topic. Why have you done? So you need to specify why more research was done on this topic, and hence you've chosen this topic. So you're done with your abstract or synopsis, you're done with the introduction, you're done with the review of literature. Now what? What is the methodology that you are going to use? Because the methodology has to match with the subject. So what does your methodology signify? First and foremost, it should allow the information that you're taking should allow the reader to assess the believability of your results. The methodology that you're using, the reader should be able to believe that yes, this methodology coincides with the result. Secondly, the information needed by another research to replicate your experiment. When you are taking review of literature, probably in future somebody else might also refer to your thesis. So the information needed by another researcher to replicate your experiment. Then that's the reason the methodology is equally important to specify. Then it should also describe or give a description of the materials, the procedure and the theory that you have used. It should include the calculation, the technique, the procedure, the equipment and the calibration plots, whatever you have used. Basically, whatever method, whatever procedure, whatever physical equipments you've used, it should contain all the information so that in future, if anybody wants to replicate your study, they should be easily replicable, removing all doubts that you have not used proper methodology. So in short, whatever you mention has to be verifiable. So now you have mentioned the methodology, you have circulated your questionnaire, or you've physically gone and asked questions depending upon the kind of method that you're using. So now is the time to share your results and discuss or interpret them. You can either have these two headings, result and discussion, either as one or separately. Now, what should they contain? They are the actual statements of observation, which could include statistics, tables and graphs. These days, because of Corona, we see that we've been using Google Forms or any other forms for that matter, which directly give us the graphs. So we have been using the graph and we have been stating the result directly. And you should be mentioning both the negative results as well as the positive results, which means, say for example, if a study is showing that just 10% or 20% people are aware about the situation, and some questions are saying that 90% people are aware about the situation. So it's not that you should hide that only hide the answer to the question that only 10% people are aware. No, you need to mention about both, about each and every question that you put forth to your audience or your target audience, so that it will help us to identify on which topic or what is the criteria where we need to make people more aware about it. Do not interpret the results. You can save that for the discussion if the heading is separate. If the heading is not separate, then you can interpret the result under the same heading. Then you have to present sufficient details so that others, not only you, because it's the reader who is going to read your thesis. So it is for the reader who can also draw the inferences or construct their own explanation. Your results in discussion have to be so simple, extremely simple. And you can break up the results into logical statements as well, where you can put your own logic, your own interpretation, so that it gives the reader a chance to think. Okay, the person who has done the thesis or who has done the research thinks like this, trying to think on your putting their foot in your shoes and thinking, and also have their own independent thought process as well. The key results should be stated in clear sentence at the beginning of the paragraph. And so how you can basically define the result in discussion part: you put a question, you put the question for which the graph you're putting, then you put the graph, then you can put your own interpretation or your own reference, then you can put as logical statement, and then you can put the key result here. So when you put this into different headings, it is very easy for the reader to understand what you're trying to say, what is your interpretation, what is the key result, and what is an independent inference. So you have to describe the nature of the findings, and just do not tell the reader whether this is right or wrong, or whether this is of significance or this is not important. So you have to describe the nature of the findings. Let the reader do their own job. So to achieve all this, what we need to do? We need to quarantine the observations from the interpretations. Oh, I just love this word quarantine, especially in this corona era. We know what does clearly know what does quarantine mean. Basically, quarantine means separating yourself from the entire family. So how can you do it? You need to physically separate the different segments that we just spoke about. First you write the question, then you place the graph, then you write a logic, then you give the subheading logical statement, then you give the heading interpretation, and then you give the heading key findings. So this is how you quarantine or separate your observations from your interpretations. By separating or by quarantining them, what happens? The writer makes it crystal clear which statements are observations, which statements are interpretation, and it becomes very, very helpful to the reader of your research. So after we have finished all the steps, we are done with the abstract, we are done with the introduction, we are done with the review of literature, we are done with the methodology and the resultant discussion. Now what? Now there has to be analysis. However, this analysis has to be divided into two parts. Why two parts? First, there has to be a summarization or the analysis of your thesis. Then there has to be a comparative analysis. A comparative analysis is basically with the research that has been done before. So you have taken reference of a few literatures in the review of literature, which is very close to your thesis. So whatever findings were there and whatever the common questions were there, so you are now going to relate it to show a relation between your thesis and the review of literature, and you are going to try and identify whether your study replicates what was there in the review of literature, basically the previous researches, or is it different? And if it is different, why is it different? If it is same, still you have to answer why is it same. It could be different because probably you are doing it in a different location, probably there's a difference of city and village, or probably it's a different country altogether. It could be same because probably you're doing it in the same city, same rural or urban population, or XYZ. There could be various reasons. It could be same or it could be different. So it is very, very necessary to also do a comparative study or a comparative analysis, so that we are able to define further what could be the limitations of our study and what could we recommend. Additionally, what should we be doing in the analysis? We should be avoiding bandwagons. Now, what do you understand by bandwagons? Basically, we should avoid jumping on an activity or an idea that has become very popular. We need to include everything, be it a popular idea, be it unpopular idea, be it a completely unknown idea. Things that we now know or understand that we didn't know before, we have to highlight that in the present work, in the analysis, because that will help us do more and more research in the future. We need to include evidence or line of reasoning supporting every interpretation that we have done previously. Then what is the significance of your present result? Why should we care about it? Next, we need to understand the different hypotheses that are coming up in our study. We should just avoid sticking to our favorite one or pushing the favorite one. We need to understand what are the different interpretations that we are receiving or we are getting from our study, and we need to talk about each and every one of them. We need to give an equal treatment to all the possibilities that are there, and we need to indicate in which future work may lead to their discrimination, that how we need to avoid the favoritism, and we need to give equal treatment to all the hypotheses that is coming ahead. So now we have done with the analysis in detail and being specific about it, about comparative analysis, about the researches that we have referred to. So when we are concluding, the conclusion statement has to be extremely strong and important, that we have made from the observations. Why? Because if somebody is reading our research and at some point of time, probably after 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, when your reader meets you, happens to meet you on any occasion, and he says, and during the conversation comes out that you had written this paper. So the reader should be able to say, oh, it was your paper, this line was so catchy, or this statement I still remember, it was such an attractive paper. This should be the statement that should come out from your reader. So it's very, very important that every part of your thesis is important. Be it introduction when you start with the hook statement, be it your conclusion when you give a very catchy or a strong statement that you've made out of your observation. The conclusions that you've designed should be described, the way you have reached by carrying out different investigations. You need to summarize the observations, new interpretations or new insights. When you give new insights and make people or make your reader think, oh, I've never thought of this way, it gives a different look to your thesis. So look from broader implications what your results could say. But remember, do not repeat your abstract or introduction or discussion anywhere in the thesis, be it even in the conclusion. Definitely now we are done with the conclusion as well. So what's in the thesis now? Balance. Remember, no thesis is perfect. So we need to understand the limitations of our thesis or of our dissertation. Hence, we need to include, whenever appropriate, what are the remedial actions to overcome that limitations. Hence, which will come under the heading of limitations and recommendations. What could be the further research done to fill in the gaps? We need to put such statements. The directions for future investigations that we could do or related topics, so that when anybody is reading your research, if somebody is interested to do more research on the similar topic that you have done, he gets a guideline or he or she gets a way that, okay, this point has not been researched, so I could further do the research and go on a next level to do the research. So now your research work is complete. So wouldn't you like to acknowledge your guide who has helped you throughout the thesis, who has guided you how to do the thesis? So this could be at the beginning or at the end, preferably in the beginning. However, you could also put it at the end, the acknowledgement, the your thankfulness to the guide who has advised you, who has helped you throughout the thesis. It could be technically who has helped you with the materials or the supplies. It could be intellectual advice or assistance, or probably somebody could have helped you even financially, a departmental support or a travel grant or whatever. So whoever has helped you in whatever way during their thesis, you need to mention their names in the acknowledgement. Last but not the least step in the construction of a thesis or a dissertation, that's appendices. We also know it by the name of bibliography. So what is this appendices or bibliography? The appendices or the bibliography is a supplementary material at the end of the book or your thesis or dissertation. Usually it contains the links from where you have taken the material. However, your thesis should not be dependent upon this. Your thesis should be able to stand alone without the bibliography. In bibliography, what all things you can share and what all things you shouldn't be sharing. So first and foremost, in the bibliography, you could share the technical details of the equipment that you've used, the design protocol that you've used, or any new innovative method that you've used. Secondly, you could share the links from where you've taken the reference material which is not easily available. Third, you could share some calculations if they're in your thesis which has not been understood easily previously. If there are any approval letters that have been required, for example, my empanelment letter, the guide's empanelment letter that is required, you could again put it after you've posted all the links, so that also becomes a part of your bibliography. But what you should not include, the figures and tables have to come regularly with the thesis, including the captions. That should not come in the appendix or the bibliography. Draft of the thesis is ready. So let's see the steps how to finalize them. Now you've worked on the entire thesis, you've finished your entire thesis. So the draft of the thesis is ready. But do we still need to finalize it? Definitely yes, we need to finalize it. Why? There are a lot of reasons why we need to again go through the entire thesis. Now, before we finalize the thesis, what are the things we need to look into? First and foremost, we definitely need to look into the spellings, because some of the spellings which are similar in pronunciation, which we call as homonyms, they are not checked by the spell checker as well. For example, here and here that I've stated here. So one here is HERE and one here is HEAR. It will not catch these synonyms. So if you have a place where HERE is supposed to be mentioned, and if you put the spelling in HEAR, the entire meaning of the sentence changes. Hence, every bit of your thesis has to be finally checked by the eyes. You have to check if there are any repetitions, because repetitions need to be avoided. You also need to check if every page has the same style. Style meaning the font is same. If you put the heading say in font size 25 and rest of the paragraphs in font size 20, so the same thing should go on every page. It's not like one heading is in font size 25, the other heading is in font size 30, and the third heading is in font size 20. No, it will look very weird. So every style that you're using, the font, supposing one page you're using the font as say Times Roman, the other page you use Tribute. So no, everywhere, whether it is a font size, whether it is a font name, everything, the style has to be the same. Make sure that you use complete sentences and you check the grammar, you check the punctuation, you check the sentence structure, you check the subject-verb agreement, where you have used plural or singular, and the tense consistency. So there has to be a consistency. If you're using the present tense, you should be using almost everywhere in the present tense. Try and use it wherever it is possible. If you're using past tense, try and use it past tense, depending. So it has to be the same everywhere. The pattern has to be the same in the entire thesis. Remember this, it's very, very important. Now, while trying to finalize the draft of the thesis, we've already done the grammar check, we've done with the punctuations, we've done that there's no repetition. So is there something more that we need to look into? Definitely yes. We need to avoid ambiguity. So what is ambiguity? Ambiguity means vagueness. So there has to be no vagueness or no just here and there theory in our thesis. It has to be very specific. Whatever we write in our thesis has to be extremely specific. Also remember that it should not contain more than 2 ideas. Ideally, one idea is best, but not more than 2 ideas at the same time. We have to avoid using double negatives. What is a double negative? A double negative is a construction occurring when 2 forms of grammatical negation are used in the same sentence. For example, let's see, I hardly have no money. This is a wrong or incorrect sentence. The correct sentence will be, I hardly have any money. So, double negatives generally make the sentence incorrect.
Now make sure that the antecedent for every pronoun is crystal clear, which means, say for example, if I say Dr. Vidushi is meeting a client at 5 p.m. She is going to give a diet plan, right? So she is a pronoun for Dr. Vidushi. So it has to be crystal clear. When you are using a pronoun, it is for whom you are using this pronoun. Now if you are in doubt that the pronoun is used for which particular noun, better use a noun there. Let's see an example. Say the sentence is, Dr. Vidushi is going to visit a client at Borivali and in Kandivali. This is the place that she is going to reach at 5:30 p.m. Now which place, Borivali or Kandivali? So you could reframe the sentence as, Dr. Vidushi is going to visit a client in Borivali and Kandivali. At Borivali, she'll be visiting the client at 5:30 p.m. So because we could not be specific about a pronoun being used for Borivali or Kandivali, hence we are using the noun again. Ensure singular versus plural. It is always better that we use singular versus plural. Of course, if plural is required, then definitely we would use plural there. But always ensure that in the right context we are using either singular word or a plural word. Avoid qualitative adjectives when describing concepts that are quantifiable. For example, quality is deep. Like for example, the water is deep. However, how deep? Water depths exceed 5 kilometers. Now let me give you another sentence in the same context. When you are doing a thesis, you might say, we have conducted our thesis on a large number of population. So large is an adjective, it's a qualitative adjective, right? But when it is quantifiable, which means I have done my thesis taking 100 people as my target group. So that gives you a quantifiable number. So therefore, we are supposed to use a quantifiable number rather than a qualitative adjective. We have seen what a thesis should contain. Now also let us understand what a thesis should never contain. A thesis should never be a question. It should be a statement which you want to concentrate or which you want people to understand about. A thesis is never a list. It's a statement. As I said, it's never a question, it's never a list, it's a simple statement which you want to do research upon. A thesis should never be vague or confrontational. A thesis has to be very, very specific what you are working upon, and it should not create any kind of confrontation. An effective thesis has a definable, arguable claim, which means even if you have to argue about a topic, it should be definable. It should not be confrontational where somebody might just come and want to argue with you unreasonably. And a thesis should be as clear and specific as possible, which means it should not be vague at all.